Okay, we're going to get started. I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6:01 p.m. We ask that all those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from this evening's board work session. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Botter, and Christy Hassett. Ms. Prosnick and Ms. Taylor are not present. I've asked Ms. Hassett if she would lead us in prayer.
Everyone bow your heads if you want to join me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day you have made for us. We desperately wish that you would wrap your arms around so many people and so many communities in the state right now that are suffering and having tragic losses that are hard to recover from. We also help that our teachers and staff have an amazing, safe, nourishing summer, all summer long, and keep them protected so that we can see their smiling faces back in August. And we pray that we make good, sound decisions tonight and that we listen to all the input that staff has given us and provided and taken all the time that they've put into providing this information for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Christy. We'll now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.074. The time is 6:02 p.m. guys ready? Okay. All right, here we go. I'm just teasing you guys because all you're here for the announcement. All right, we're back on record in open session, having returned from closed session. Time is 6:10 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. On personnel recommendations, Principal Bridlewood Elementary School, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll
Miss-
make that motion.
Ms. Lasan?
I move that the board approve Miss Meredith Whitehouse as principal of Bridlewood Elementary School as recommended by administration and a personnel selection committee.
Second.
Dr. Bonner?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, just for the record, Ms. Taylor joined us at 6:11 p.m. That's all right, no problem. Our vision statement, all of our students enjoy thriving, productive lives and a future they create. Our mission statement, students, staff, and community design and implement a learning organization that provides engaging, innovative experiences every day. Cornerstones, resource stewardship, Ms. Maloney.
Thank you, President Miller. The I statement for this evening is I embrace innovation with a flexible, relevant, and solution-oriented mindset. When looking at the agenda this evening, this statement is on point as we continuously seek ways to leverage the district's assets and attributes.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. In accordance with district board policy, only speaker cards addressing items on this evening's agenda will be acknowledged. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. Each speaker will receive a written follow-up from the district in the next 3 business days. The board and district administration values the feedback shared during this time of the meeting, and we are grateful for the continued partnership between LISD and the families in our communities we serve. We have no speakers this evening. Discussion items, Dr. Rapp, Superintendent Report.
Yes, thank you, President Miller. So wanted to just follow back up from the initial providing the copy of the board goals to you all for you to take a look at. Of course, I'm open to any additional feedback this evening about any possible revisions for these goals. As I shared previously, of course, once we have the strategic plan settled on by December, that will ultimately inform what your strategic priorities and framework looks like for 23 and beyond. But these goals would be what ultimately drive our work for the course of the next school year, and of course would be used in the superintendent evaluation instrument. So your goals here represent a focus on completing the strategic plan. That's one of your very first goals under governance, along with a few other items there, implementing things from the audit results. And then they provide continuity with the reading, math, CCMR goals, as well as adding a quantitative outcome with student experience. That's based on our student surveys. We're in the second year this past year of administering a student survey, so we have good baseline data on the student survey that's built out your student experience goal. And then we also have, we've added the elementary target to our student experience, our college and career ready goal under student experience. And then under resource stewardship, one of the suggestions was to go ahead with the board goal about technology and say provide technology resources there. We also had a little bit of feedback around the percentages in the HR goal. We do believe probably maintaining those percentages right now is still recommended given the tough hiring climate that we're in. We did talk about ultimately with the work of the strategic plan, should that be a goal that's maybe a 3-year target goal where you're increasing over the next several years. And then ultimately you've got a community engagement goal that does have a quantitative measurement component. The other items are just tactical under community engagement, but every one of these goals does have a quantitative component for measurement. So I'll stop there. I know y'all have had plenty of chances to look at these and provide any additional feedback, and I appreciate the feedback received, and ultimately would be working to bring you a final version of these goals for adoption at Monday's meeting. So I'll take any comments.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp.
I
Ms.
have a
Hassan?
quick one, Mr. Miller. So we had talked about, possibly incorporating some of the honor board things into this without comparing the two documents. Is any of that in here?
No, I provided you all, of course, what it would take to become an honor board, and that may be something that you want to consider for the long run. It's not in these goals right now.
Right.
But if y'all wanted to work any of that in here, we definitely could. And
more of what I meant is, comparing the two documents, and maybe there's a couple of things that we pull out. I don't mean the whole thing for sure, but just a couple to compare the two. Okay, and so we're gonna vote on this on Monday?
That would be the goal, because we need
Okay.
to adopt the goals for the superintendent evaluation instrument.
Okay.
And I think we'll talk about this, I believe, in August. In looking at the honor board criteria, I think there were maybe 11, if I'm not mistaken, scored at 20 points each or so. We'll take a look at where some of those things might need to be in the BOP versus other places, right? So we're just going to have some further discussion about it. Does anybody else have any? Okay. Second item, Human Resources Report. Ms. Smith.
Good evening. And Melissa is joining me as well, so we will tag team through our update. As you all know, last week, Melissa shared with you some ESS information about substitutes, but I just wanted to briefly go through a couple of pieces of this tonight so we can have further discussion, if warranted, about our subs and ESS. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to, and I know you saw this last week, but it's just simply our daily pay rate. You can see that our substitutes are currently paid for a certified sub $115 a day. You can see how that compares with all of the districts around us. We're very competitive. The only district that's really ahead of us is Plano. And for years, Plano has paid a substantial amount for their subs higher. But other than that, we're pretty competitive. This is long-term substitute pay. So when we have a person that's working more than 16 consecutive days, then they start being paid $130 per day. And you once again can see how that compares with everyone else. One of the reasons why I'm bringing this forward to you tonight to look at is because when we start talking about what we pay for ESS, just as a reminder, we still control the pay rates that we're offering every day. ESS will allow us as a district to set those rates at whatever rate we choose to set them, and then they just have the fee in addition to that. So I wanted to make sure you knew those rates. Also still in play is our Friday incentive pay. So if a sub is working on Fridays, they get paid $10 extra a day above what they normally get paid. We have the 9-week incentive pay. So if they work 25 days or more within the 9 weeks, they get a $250 additional payment. And then we pay $10 extra per day to our LISD retirees. So then when we start talking about the cost of ESS, this will show you, of course, they took over in February. So this will show you from February to May what our costs have been. So in the first column, you see the amount ESS is invoiced us. You see in the middle what our sub rate would just cost us as a district, our flat rate, and then on the far side you see the delta or the difference between the two. So you can tell, of course, February was just a partial month and they were just getting started, and then you can see the cost for March, for April, and for May. So that in terms of cost, that's what ESS is costing us. When they took over, so when we were looking at our fill rates for August through February, we were running a 53% fill rate. They took over February 15th, and from February 15th to May 20th, they have operated at a 71% fill rate. And you can also see we had 431 subs, active subs in the system, and they have increased that to 670 active subs. So the number of subs that they have available to us is substantially higher. That fill rate is still not what we wanted. We did work in a clause into the agreement that they pay a penalty each month if we're not at 85% or higher. So they have been paying a penalty each of those months and will continue to do so. But this is just information that I want you to have when we discuss whether we move forward with ESS or what that looks like. Questions or comments about our ESS substitute management?
Ms. Taylor?
I had a, oh, is this on? Maybe it's my mask, sorry. I had a question for you. When you said that they pay a penalty, is that a certain rate? Is it a certain amount? Can you?
It's $10,000 a month, isn't it? $5,000 a month. Sorry, Craig.
Okay,
$5,000 a month.
thank you.
Ms. Hassett?
What is the time frame that we'll discuss it again, action-wise?
So we have a 30-day out clause at any point. So, I mean, we could always discuss that, or the contract actually comes up August 31st.
Our term runs through August 31st of 2020, but we do have a 30-day out clause. We just have to, either party can notify within 30 days if we're not extending.
And they definitely have increased our subs and the rate. It's not as high as we want it, but there are extenuating circumstances lately. However, could we go, and I hate to change it for our subs again, could we go back and hire 1 or 2 people in-house to do something that wouldn't cost the district as much? Would we ever have the same fill rate if we brought it back in-house again? I know you have to have a guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wish I had
With
that
your
crystal ball so
magical-
much. So first, let me say, if the decision is made that we don't want to move forward with ESS, I give everybody sitting here my word, we will do whatever we can to, I mean, that I
course.
want to guarantee you.
That was never.
They
yeah,
were able to get the number of subs available to us higher than we were able to do in a year and a half. No matter, we raised the daily rate 3 different times and still couldn't really make an impact on the number of available subs. And so for me, it's actually really difficult because I wanted that. I'm not a very patient person, if you ask my family, and so I wanted to see that 85% fill rate. I gave them February, but I certainly, by April 1, I wanted to see that 85% fill rate. Maybe that's not realistic when they're trying to move into a new system and, hire up. I mean, they had to hire up to fill the rate as well. And so I would be dishonest if I didn't say to you, I'm a little not satisfied with their fill rate. However, if we move away from ESS, we've only really given them about March, April, and May, really. I don't know that that's long enough to really know what they're able to do. And we wouldn't be able to, I do not believe some of those people who have currently signed on to work with us would continue with us because they're committed to ESS in their pool. So what I would like to propose is that we continue with them at least and look at it again in January, and we can look at a full semester of work. Know the change takes time as well anytime you change over, and so we would definitely need time to make that change, but it is definitely data that we need to keep bringing before you because it is a cost to the district that we need to be getting to that 85% fill rate in order to say to you that it's worth that cost.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all the work.
Can I add to, I think it's just an important piece of information for you to know, that when we transferred to them, they placed 3 people in that office to work, and due to the staffing shortage, it took them a good 2 months to fill those other two positions while they took our current substitute facilitator and she rolled into ESS as well. They still had 2 vacancies. So for a couple of months there, she was doing it all on her own. So that could have impacted the ability to hire more subs, and it definitely impacted their ability to recruit. So we are there now fully staffed. We had some transition and turnover even with that position. There was a couple people that came in and we had to hire again. So I just think that's important to note that they're now, probably for the last month, are fully staffed and are implementing a recruitment plan and that on their end.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just real quick, so it looks like Denton has kind of come up a little bit on their rate. I mean, do we need to look at that again, at increasing the pay rate for subs?
So, I mean, I'm always going to be inclined to say I would like for us to be higher than anyone in the area other than Plano. Plano's just an outlier out there with it. It is certainly something that I think could help us recruit.
I mean, because, just glancing at the list, I mean, we're probably sort of in the middle, but, which is not a bad place to be necessarily, but I don't know, like Denton right up the road, if you can go right up the road or to Lantana and sub there and make a little more, you might. Anyway, I'm just throwing it out there.
And while Richardson is a distance away, mileage-wise, ESS they entered into a partnership with them as well. So while you have the same pool of people that can go sub in any ESS district, I realize that is an outlier as far as distance from here, but that is another option you need to consider as well.
Does the invoices that you've given us, does that reflect a credit of their penalties, or is that not reflected in those invoices?
That is reflected in those numbers. Those were the numbers as of last week.
Okay. Would there be any way when we get these numbers, and you've got the ESS invoice and the LISD subcosts and Delta, to add another column and give us the fill rate for those months? Would love to see that. And do we anticipate a higher reduction or lower fill rate based on the fact that we have reduced permanent subs on campuses next year?
So if we fill our positions, that'll be key. If we fill our open positions and we can maintain through the year, kind of like we ended the year without big surges of sickness, we should be able to maintain. If we go through another period of time where we hit, a heavy surge in COVID or something similar, then obviously that will be impacted.
Okay. And then are the long-term, or not the long-term, the pay rates that are listed, are those all ESS contracted districts? Because I know I'm a substitute in Carrollton, and their pay is $130.
No, this is just the districts we typically share with you. This is not the rates. We gather those rates, and these are the districts we typically share with you.
Because I do hear from some others that I run into in that district that are right on that border of Carrollton that they don't want to come to Lewisville. They try to take the jobs in Carrollton because the pay is more. So I think that's something that we need to continually look at, because I think that we are losing a population of people that would prefer Lewisville ISD, but for the pay, they choose Carrollton Farmers Branch.
If you could just give us some guidance on where you'd like to see our rates be, we can bring that forward. We can bring that.
I think for me, although I appreciate McKinney and Garland and Arlington being listed on here, I don't really see them as competitors because they're not in geographical contact with our district. So I think I would like to see those districts that have geographical contact with the district and what those rates are before we probably as a board can make a suggestion to you. Does that make sense?
It does, within driving distance.
Right, within driving distance, yeah.
And I do believe that Frisco and Denton both use ESS as well as Coppell. So you can see just with Frisco and Denton's rates that they go two different approaches and use ESS, and I don't remember on Coppell. But anyway, we're surrounded by districts that are using ESS.
Correct.
Thank you.
They don't all have, though, like the bonus that we pay for working a certain number of days, or what we pay in addition on Fridays, or what we pay in addition to a retiree from the district.
Correct.
But
correct.
we still could
Yeah, I don't
easily
get
look at
any of
raising those.
Yeah, I don't get any of those. And I don't know if there's a way, but any information that you could bring to us on those geographical driving distance ones in order for us to make a really great decision, that would be appreciated.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Dr. Rapp addressed one of the things that I wanted to maybe just state as much as anything else. You know, it's almost a case of being the odd man out in not being a non-ESS district, you know, when you're looking at, and what a great place for them to be, when you're looking at places that people could go, and if we're here going it alone, then maybe we're excluded because we can't combine forces with those ESS districts. So I think it was a good move to sign up with them. It is a heightened cost, clearly, but you can see that they've done the work to get the increase up. I would like to know just real briefly, what does ESS say? I'm sure you've talked to them. What's their feedback on that?
We have, and, you know, part of it was the time of the year. They have not made excuses, and I really want you to know that. But it took them a little bit longer to staff, like Melissa said. The person that was over our program, they had to pass that off temporarily because of a serious health issue with that person. She's back and okay, but that happened. And they said that typically when a district starts at the beginning, it takes a good 3 to 4 months to establish some kind of consistency, which is why I'm hopeful when we start in August, we'll start with an 85 to 90% fill rate and be able to maintain that.
We've seen their temporarily, or their preliminary recruitment plan for the summer, and it's pretty impactful. Now that everybody's on board and them getting out to events and they have covered everything that you can even imagine, from social media to actually being in person to going to different events. The team goes out. If one person's out almost every day,
Okay.
and even at our school's carpool lines.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this is my last question. I think Dr. Bonner covered some of questions that I had. But I guess I want to understand, if you're coming to the board to make a decision, what is the timeline? Is there a particular timeline for a decision? And then I wanted to confirm what I thought I heard is that you would be recommending your professional experience and your experience with them of continuing on in this road. I guess I just want to make sure I understand that in the timeline that we may be asked to make a decision.
Yes, ma'am. So when we signed on with them, our contract allowed us to have that out clause, and so that is an option that I just wanted to let you know is there. My recommendation is that we continue with them, but to continue to evaluate it every semester to see if our needs are being met. But I don't believe we've given them long enough to show the success they can have in our district.
Thank you. So I think a lot of good questions were asked. I think we've exhausted our administrative role in this. I expect to see it on consent, not in a discussion or action. We can pull it from consent if necessary. Things to think about: how do we back out? We went from paying teacher substitutes on a certain monthly or however that worked. Now we went to weekly. They are able to get benefits, et cetera. The unhooking of this is pretty dramatic. And so I agree with Dr. Bonner. What does ESS say, and what do our employees say? While we had, some very few rough starts, it seemed like the emails we got after the first month were gone. The other side of it is, though, I think that, there was an organic lift that took place because we came out of COVID where we had a kind of desperate situation staffing, and we probably would have seen an organic lift in substitutes anyway. Nevertheless, I agree that it's kind of everybody's doing it, and that's the environment that we're in. I also agree that when you put it forward to us that you include what you believe the competitive rate to be. I would hope the board spend little time debating that. You guys tell us what it needs to be, tell us what the budget is. If a member wants to pull it from consent, we certainly can do it at that time. So I would say if we have to talk about increased funding and it comes back to us, which I'm not sure that it has to, but I'll let you and our legal counsel determine that, we do it kind of when we do the region contracts and the renewals. I think that's late August or early September, right? So if we need to do something different, that we do it in that cycle. Would that make sense?
Yes.
Would you be okay with that? Okay. And then I'm actually supportive of making it, to Ms. Sell's point, more competitive. I looked at the list and you said we're pretty competitive. I mean, as a percentage, if you're looking at that and you're the person getting paid, you're looking at 135 versus 115. Although I think it's important to note, but the $10, the $250, right? Those have to somehow be articulated when we tell the full story. So if we could get this on the next cycle of renewals that typically come to us, I think it would be great for us to kind of close out on this and let them focus. And it certainly was a difficult time to start this up. Very difficult time, outside of any personal situation. So thank you for bringing this forward. With that said, I think you got one more item, right?
We do.
Okay.
So the next thing I would like for us to discuss tonight is the idea of adding bereavement leave back into our leave. I just kind of want to remind you all where we currently stand with sick leave and with bereavement leave. So our current practice is that when someone reaches out to us for bereavement leave, we simply tell them that they can use up to 3 days of their own local or state leave. And that right now is our bereavement leave policy. In addition to that, they can apply for hardship leave, which is only for certain employees. You have to be a full-time employee. The employee has to have exhausted all available leave, so they have to have already used up all of their state and local leave. And they may be awarded up to 5 days at 50% of their daily rate of pay. And that leave can only be used for a parent, a spouse, or a child. Okay? We also have sick leave bank, which in order to qualify under this, you have to be a member of the sick leave bank and you have to have contributed 1 local personal day annually. You must have exhausted all local and state leave, not vacation if you're one of the employees that earns vacation, but all of your state and local leave. And you may be awarded up to 5 days at 100% of your daily rate of pay for a parent, spouse, or child only. And you may be awarded up to 3 days at 100% if it is a grandparent, a father-in-law, a mother-in-law, or a grandchild. So what we are proposing with the bereavement leave is that we make this available for all of our full-time employees. I'm proposing that we make it 3 fully paid days and that it be available prior to exhausting their local and state leave, very similar to how we ran COVID leave. So if an employee had a member of their family, and those guidelines would be followed under FML leave, meet the legal criteria of immediate family of our that's set forth by the federal government for FML, they would submit to us documentation, very much like we did with COVID leave, but the employee would get the 3 days of bereavement leave before they used their own personal leave. We would then allow them, if they needed to apply for additional leave, that they could go to the sick leave bank if they were a member of the sick leave bank, where they could get the leave that we just talked about. Because, and this is my personal opinion, but if you lose a spouse, a child, or a parent, I have been in that situation, and there are days that you're preparing for a service. There are days that you've got to go take care of the financial needs. I mean, there's just a lot to take care of in that situation. And so that's why our proposal is that we allow them the 3 days prior to their leave. They can then apply through the sick leave bank for additional leave if warranted, and if they're a member of the sick leave bank, or they can then use their personal leave in addition to that. Several years ago, there was a push to get bereavement leave out of local policies, but I do want to remind you all that our local leave policy is your policy, and we can set that. There has been a push this coming year, going into next year. Several districts are talking about putting bereavement leave back in. I've shared a few of those with you that when the survey was done in March, we're already talking about putting this leave in. So you can see that Joshua is actually adding 5 days with a maximum of 2 occurrences per year. Prosper is adding 3 days, and they give employees 5 local leave days and 5 state days, but they're also giving 3 bereavement days. And Rockwall is giving 5 bereavement days. So while that's not a lot of districts that are making this move, it is a move that you're seeing people move back to. I think it's part of an overall plan to address the mental well-being of our staff. I know that in the budget workshop, Melissa shared with you an amount of $25,000. That amount was based on the number of employees we've had that asked for bereavement leave from the sick leave bank. That's the data we have for that number. There are many people that probably took off and had personal leave, didn't apply through the sick leave bank because of a death in their family. So, I'm saying to you that there may be more this year apply for it, but I just think it is definitely something that we should consider to further help our employees. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Bonner.
To confirm what Sheila had said, not that she needs my confirmation, but it was about 5 or 6 years ago that TASB recommended that bereavement leave be taken out of DEC local. And so, given some of the leave items we've talked about in the past few months, I fully agree that adding this back as bereavement leave is the appropriate thing to do for our staff. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you, Betty.
I'm sorry, but why did they take it out?
Couldn't tell you.
So they recommended just nobody giving bereavement leave anymore.
Yeah, so you know how TASB operates in recommendations on local policy. Legal policy, of course, is statutory, but it was an item that they took out. I want to say it was right at the beginning of Dr. Rogers' term as superintendent.
Catherine.
Just curious, how many employees participate in the sick bank?
We can follow up with that information.
Yeah,
And that's okay. I'm so sorry.
I have a number in my head, but I don't have it written down, and that would be dangerous.
It would just be good information for us to know. And then you address the cost. So you're in addressing the cost. You gave us that, but it's probably going to be higher than that. So.
I believe it'll be higher than $25,000 because I believe we'll know more about deaths in people's family that we right now don't know about because they're just using their personal leave.
And then the recommendation you're making is for implementation of next year.
Yes, ma'am. We would need to change the policy to allow us to add this to our local leave policy.
Okay. And I along with Dr. Bronner, do support this. I think that now more than ever, I know just like you, I've been in that situation. It wasn't until the 3rd day we could even get in a meeting with the funeral home because they're swamped just like everybody else is with, loss of employees and so forth, and their scheduling is just even crazy. So I do support this. Thank you for bringing it forward to us, too. Thank you.
Ms. Hassan?
I guess my only question is about, because you had on one of them, Joshua, or one of the districts, about occurrences per year. So what is your thought about, because to me, if someone has both parents die in 1 year, they should be able to take bereavement leave twice a year. I mean, I know that the idea behind the occurrences is probably so that people don't take advantage of it, but then maybe you could kind of talk about a little bit like, sadly, how do you plan to prove that their loved one died?
Well, I think we set the guidelines that it has to meet the FML criteria of immediate family, and then they would be obligated to provide us, whether it's the brochure or a copy of the death certificate. But to your point, bless somebody that loses 2 of those people in a year, but they're going to need that leave, is my thinking, if that happens to them.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% support this. I can't believe they took that out. I mean, to me, this is just something that, I don't know. I think this is pretty basic, so I'm 100% behind this.
Thank you.
No questions. It's just, I totally agree, but I prefer 5 days full pay, personally. I think
I'm sorry.
I think 5 days full pay. I think if you lose a spouse or a child, or 3 days is just not sufficient, in my opinion. Not only to begin grieving, but to do all the paperwork. 5 days is my preference.
Ms. Taylor?
I don't really have a comment. I agree.
Yeah, so I think as it relates to bereavement, it's the business discussion around funding this makes us seem almost insensitive, right? That we're talking about, should we do 3 days, 5 days with the loss of a child? And having a family member going through that as we speak, 5 days is even insufficient. And I'm sure there are mechanisms in place for us to address special circumstances always, and that we do. But from a policy perspective, I'm fine expanding that. I'm not okay with personal leave. That's come up. That's a $1.2 million expense. I don't think, given the history of what we've talked about and the use of personal leave or additional personal leave, it merits that. Again, there's the sick bank, and I know that we talked about, the question was how many people participate, but I think another question is how many days are in there, right? So if we look at this and we say we roll over 2,000 days a year, we don't have a problem, except for the fact that we just need people to use the policy, right? As it relates to personal leave, as it relates to sick leave, making that more formal and appearing more sensitive, and especially with, I won't get into the cost. I think the cost is immaterial on this. Quite frankly, if it's less than $50,000, we're kind of wasting a lot of time talking about it, right? Because Dr. Rapp can approve that. But whatever you guys recommend, again, I think if we can see this is going to come forward through a policy?
Yes.
Okay, so will we see that in a sufficient amount of time that employees know? When will we see that? Will we see it next week?
No. But we will need to get it to you.
August. But you can refer people to tonight's video if there's questions. How's
Will
that?
do.
All right.
And
Thank you
I
very
just
much.
want to say thank you, because I do think it stresses to our employees that their well-being is important to us. And I know you all feel that way, and I just think this goes a long way in expressing that to them. So thank you.
Thank you.
I got all excited about bereavement leave. I'm sorry. So I just need to do a job market update with you just to talk about, I know in our previous conversations, we've talked about, on occasion, needing to make market adjustments to groups of employees. So we just needed to discuss 3 groups with you. One are our nurses. Historically, nurses have been hired in where they only get credit for school RN experience, but not for RN experience. So if they're coming to us from children's, and they, have been working children's ER, but not been in a school system, they don't get any credit. They start as like they're a beginning person. So what we are wanting to do is move to where we pay a year of credit for each year of RN experience that they have. In order to adjust that for our nurses, it will cost us $125,000 to make that market adjustment. An additional market adjustment is our speech therapists, our counselors, LSSPs, DIAGs, that group. They currently, to get them, we adjusted that group to 100% of the market in 1920. But there is another group of SPED specialists. Those are your therapists, your OTs, your PTs, your audiologists, those types of therapists that are currently at 94% of the market. So to bring that group up to 100% of the market, it would cost us right at $100,000. This group is pretty important because there is a substantial shortage of people in this group, and so they're highly recruited from one district to the next district. And so that is why we're bringing these 2 adjustments for your consideration.
Both of these are essentially just follow-up from the budget workshop. We spoke of, you all gave the head nod for bereavement leave, so tonight gave us opportunity to talk about parameters around that. We'll go forward, draft policy that we'll bring forward, of course. And then I talked about the job market update and just what we were struggling with. I've written to you about that since the budget workshop as well. We did definitely finalize that these are areas we believe should be addressed, and I wanted everybody to be aware of what the cost was going to be to address these.
So Dr. Rapp, you say policy, that's actually related to bereavement, and this would just be a market adjustment.
That's right.
Can we see the market adjustment on the next consent so that those are adjusted for the budget year?
Yes, so we would work this into the fiscal year 23 budget that ultimately you all would approve in August,
Okay.
these job market updates.
Okay. My recommendation on this board, if you have questions, if we just submit those so we can keep moving. Is that all right? All right. Thank you very much. Accountability and evaluation, Dr. Fitzhugh.
Good evening. Sorry, blue, red. Those are hard to tell the difference between sometimes. I'm going to call up Dr. Deaton and Ms. Urgensen. We're going to talk about the night high school program evaluation, which is part of the optional flexible school day program that allows us to have flexible hours. And so part of us applying for that waiver is that we look at the program that we use that for each year. So they're going to update us on data points for night high school for the year.
Very good. Good evening. So this is our night high school mission, which is to provide the flexible school hours in the evening for our 9th and 12th grade LISD students so that we can hopefully increase their course completion, their graduation, and their transition to post-secondary education or career choice or trade or whatever their next plans are. With the optional flexible school day program, we serve students, again, 9th through 12th grade that meet the TEA criteria for at-risk and are eligible to participate, which includes dropout recovery. We're eligible for prorated, the weighted average daily attendance funding based on minutes for attendance. So our attendance is not just absent or present, but how many minutes the students were served. We offer core and elective courses in this program, and of course students still have to pass all required state testing. We utilize a case management approach where we look at each student individually, try to determine what their needs are, includes outreach. Our teachers will make phone calls, send emails to students that we're trying to recover and get back into school. They've also, communications this year helped us with a postcard so that they could mail out and posters to hang in the community, and just try to get our students back into their home school or our school, wherever we can serve them best. So last year we did a program evaluation and found that we had an average of 51 students in each of our terms. We had 68 recovered dropouts, one completer where they had graduation requirements and just had not mastered state testing yet. We had 96 students take classes from, they still are in their home campus, but then came to night school to accelerate or make up a course to help them get to their needs. Last year we had 40 graduates, and we had 6 students coming back to us in the fall, anticipated coming back to us. So we found that we had 91% completion rate for our courses for the night high school students, and one of the recommendations was to continue to submit the OFSDP application and offer night high school through the Learning Center campus. This graphic shows our 2022, well, all the previous years, and how many students have earned half a credit during that school year. So, for example, that first row, social studies, this year had 162 half-credit courses. So either the first half of world geography and or the second half of world geography. We had 162 students complete those half credits during the school year. I think this graphic is important to if you look at the trend where there was a lot of increase in the late teens, and then we had our 2020 pandemic, and now I think this 2022 does show that increase coming back. So last year our numbers were very low, based on virtual learning and people's circumstances, but I think this shows the trend is now increasing again. So the evaluation that we have to date shows that we serve students Monday through Friday, 3 different class times, 2:05 to 7:10. We still have our 4 core teachers for night school. We have 1 counselor that we share with VLA. We have an office assistant, a part-time nurse that comes in in the evening, and then an administrator that's also shared with Lewisville Learning Center's day program. 1 ESL teacher that's shared with the day program, and also a part-time special education teacher. We had an average of 52 students in each of the terms this year. We had 23 recovered dropouts. We served 116 students from the other 5 high schools after they completed their normal day. They came to us. And we had 91 night high school students only taking 1 or more classes. We were able to utilize VLA for those night high school students to help them get to their graduation requirements. And we were able to do food service this year, so we had an average of 15 students each night taking advantage of free or light dinners provided by food service. And again, we had actually 42 graduates this year. That slipped by us, so my apologies. This year we had 42 graduates, and we anticipate 15 students returning to us next school year. Here's a graphic that will show our night high school, the full-time students that are only coming to the night high school classes versus our part-time night high school students, which are the ones that also attend their home campus during the day and then come see us for a class or 2 at night. And just shows that, again, that trend increasing in 2022 from that previous school year. This slide has a lot of information. I feel like that's kind of shows the significance of the program and how we are able to benefit our students with our enrollment, outreach, and graduation data. Again, we had 91 night high school students that we served. 116 came from other campuses to reach their goals and their courses that were needed. Our outreach, our night high school teachers, those 4 core teachers, they make the phone calls, email, send out the postcards, go around the community to hang up posters, distribution through the community and different business locations. Teachers documented over 300 attempts to reach students, and we did end up with 23 new night high school students due to our outreach. So graduation, we had a 41% graduation rate and projected actually 42 graduates by May. And then I like the breakdown at the bottom where we were able to serve every one of our high schools this year. I included at the end of each term, our students will write a graduation letter, a reflection. So I thought it would be nice to share some of the words that they said about our campus and our program. Provided calm learning experience, helped me get through a graduation plan that tailored to fit what I needed, allowed me to take care of their daughter, work, and handle school responsibilities. I finally feel accomplished. And in other words, I found a small family in NHS. Thank you to all my teachers and staff that helped me. I finally did it. And there's some of our pictures from this graduation. And I guess before questions, there was last year, I think it might have been Ms. Sells, asked about what our students are doing now and how we helped. And so we reached out to several of our students, and we had a student that was featured on an article by radio station KERA, where he's now he's married, 2 beautiful children, and works at DFW Airport. We have a couple where one was able to graduate, the wife did, the husband did not, was not able to by the time he turned 23. However, they own their own business now and have three little boys. Of course, we had Fabian. I think I talked about him maybe last year. He was actually served by COVID because he was able to access Knight High School during a time when we were doing virtual learning, and he was not in town. Graduates now has a supervisor job and 2 beautiful boys. And then we had a student that was able to meet his goal and go into the Marines. So he came back and shared a very fancy picture with him all outfitted.
So I know, thank you so much to Ms. Surgison and Dr. Deaton. They did a great job at graduation. Many of you were there to see it. And, of course, thank you to ultimately, Dr. Rogers' leadership many years ago for starting this wonderful program. The OFSDP application, as Dr. Fitz, you said, will be on your consent agenda for Monday night because we have to provide this report in advance of getting the approval from you all to seek more time on that application every single year.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. Thank you for the presentation. We love this program. We're well aware of this program. Love how you're going out and trying to find students and provide the opportunities for them. And this was Dr. Rapp's first year to speak at this ceremony, and I think it was meaningful as she told her story a little bit. Just hearing some of the stories from the students. So the board is pretty well aware of the program. If you want to ask some deep questions, I suggest you send those in. If somebody wants to ask some just brief questions, glad to go around the horn.
I'd like to just say one thing. The work being done here is mission-driven, and it's saving human capital of kids who've washed out otherwise, right? And so I would just like to implore our other high school principals to attend Knight High School graduation next year because I think, will put a new blush on the job they do well at their campus, but to see their kids succeed with you after some previous struggles. So thank you for the work you do.
I'm sure this is because I'm new. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to ask the question. I guess I wanted to know, how do you determine the students? What's the outreach for determining what students need the service?
the question is how do we find the students with their names? So we look at a couple of different data sources that our district is able to pull for us and get their whatever we had in the system as their address and phone number. We also look at students that may not have been able to meet graduation requirements this year now, and start trying to call them to come back instead of going back as a fifth-year senior, and not only needing 2 classes, come to night school where there's more flexible time for them.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, learning and teaching, Ms. Gall.
Good evening, Dr. Rapp, President Miller, and board members. Joining me up here, Ms. Karen Seeley, our Executive Director of Secondary Curriculum and Programs, and then Jennifer Beimer, who oversees our science department for the secondary schools as our administrator. And we are here tonight so that we can share with you the instructional materials adoption that goes along with Proclamation 2022 for high school health. Of course, as you know, the State Board of Education initiates our instructional materials process, and this proclamation called for us to look at the new TEKS for high school health that were adopted in 2020 so that we can implement them in the 2022-23 school year. The new high school health materials are aligned to the 2020 revised TEKS, and we want to share with you the process we've used in order to bring to you an action item next week for you to consider what we are proposing.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Rapp, and the leadership team. Like Ms. Gall introduced, health is a 9-week elective course in our district. But we started just like we did any other adoption review cycle in LISD. We began the process by engaging our teachers to really provide some deep input around this very important decision around these materials and to support these new health TEKS. The team was amazing, and it was made up of 10 teachers that represented all of our feeder patterns, as well as some special programs, Student Success Center, LLC, and VLA as well. I do want to sincerely thank and appreciate those teachers for their time and support in this. The committee did review the one resource that was adopted by the State Board in November of 2021. The text, which is published by Goodhart-Willcox, was found to meet 100% of those health TEKS. The resource has been separated into 2 parts to meet with the opt-in legislative requirements associated with the human growth and development content. So this companion text now contains only the human growth and development content and does require that families opt in to this particular content. This content must also be made available to families prior to their decision to opt in or opt out of that particular content. So we have 2 separate books now. So both of these texts underwent thoughtful reviews for their alignment to the TEKS, and both were recommended by our teachers. With the last adoption for high school health being in 2005, they appreciated the digital nature of the product, as well as the updated information, the format, and then just that updated design of the text. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Beimer to share the details of how that companion text was reviewed by our SHAC committee.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to be here. So I was fortunate to work on our SHAC committee and led a subcommittee within those SHAC meetings. And the subcommittee was tasked with reviewing the companion text with the focus on really 3 criteria. Does the text from Goodhart-Willcox align with the standards that are found in the human growth and development strand of the new high school TEKS? Is the text appropriate for the grade level and the course in which the content will be taught? And does it reflect the LISD community values? The subcommittee agreed unanimously that the text does meet this criteria, and therefore the SHAC is recommending the companion piece specifically from Goodhart Wilcox as an instructional material for high school health. There were also 2 opportunities for community input that were provided as part of the review process.
All right, so these recommendations to approve both this companion text for adoption and the general text will be brought forth next week for action. Again, I'd like to thank the teachers and our community members that serve on SHAC for their participation. Thank you for your consideration, and we'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Is this going to be an action item or a consent item?
It will be an action item on Monday.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do some questions tonight so we can be efficient next week. Just for clarification, this is a high school elective, and this companion text is an opt-in
Yes,
to an elective class.
yes.
Okay. It's really, really important that the public understand it's an elective, and you have to opt into the companion text. And the board was all invited, I believe, to the sessions. And so the board has every opportunity to send questions in to you all under our normal process, which I think that was made available to us Wednesday. And I'm sure you'll have some questions. Is there anything that's pressing right now that the board needs to ask a question on? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know these are tough decisions and tough discussions, so thank you. Okay. Ms. Maloney, you want to start with GMP?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ratt, Mr. President Miller, and members of the board. We've got 4 items here tonight, too, that we spoke about at length at the board retreat, so may be a little redundant, but the first one on the agenda tonight is the GMP for the West Side Aquatic Center renovation, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. Good evening. This, as mentioned, is to discuss the guaranteed maximum price for the West Side Aquatic Center renovation and repairs project. At previous board meetings, the Board of Trustees approved the architect firm selection, Stantec Architecture, and the construction manager at risk firm, Core Construction, for this project. Major scope items include installation of a source capture evacuator system, additional HVAC with fresh air to the pool deck and front lobby, and replacing or providing specialty coatings to corroded items throughout the facility. The project has been advertised and competitively bid to subcontractors by Core Construction, and those bids have been evaluated and scoped for this project. Core Construction has presented a total guaranteed maximum price for the West Side Aquatic Center renovation and repairs project of $3,159,708. If approved next week, materials can then be ordered. We believe that some of this work can begin as soon as possible. Of course, there are some items with some longer lead times, the bulk of which would be the HVAC systems, but a lot of the visual elements we'll be able to start on pretty immediately, and so we're excited about that. With that, I'd like to open it up for any questions. I do have Trey Laird with Stantec Architecture with me to help answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you. As a reminder, we talked about this before. I think, Trey, you were here before. I think we're looking at about $1.6 million at that point in time. So the estimate has gone up. What we have to consider for next week is really what if we don't do it, right? I mean, I'm not sure we have many options here given the health issues that have been raised. Of course, there's some optics and, some cosmetic things, but are there any burning questions from the board about this since we've discussed it? Ms. Hassett.
I think last time you were here, you discussed it, but do you have a general timeline for completion, especially with the HVAC and the issues that are more pressing for our visitors and tourists?
We do. As I mentioned, the HVAC systems, we can't make the order until, of course, the project's approved. Once that's ordered, the initial timeline for that to be received and to start is really August 1st. That's working with the schedule, Shannon Gillespie, Director of Aquatic Centers, as well. That's right after her last major USA water polo tournament. And that's when we'll start the bulk of the HVAC items, including the source capture evacuation system and the additional mechanical systems that will be installed for the additional fresh air. In the meantime, we have been operating pretty well. We haven't had any complaints of air quality, but this is definitely going to improve, of course, significantly any issues that we did have in the past.
Did you want to say something, Trey? Or your mic was on? Okay.
Just trying to be prepared.
No, thank you. And thank you for the signage you guys put up. I don't know if you guys designed it or where that came from, but I think that sent a nice message that, hey, what you're seeing here, what you're sensing here, we're working on it. And that got some nice feedback from the community on that. So
Ms. Gillespie has been really good. She's doing all of her communication through her. She talks with all of the groups that use that facility daily, and so she's been a great asset to have there and let everybody know what's coming.
Jason, just the work will be completed once the official work begins, the big work in August, right? Take it till...
Yeah, so the substantial completion date is actually in December. I know that sounds like a long time, but that includes commissioning, punch list items, final clean, everything, done. And so,
yes, sir.
That being said, the majority of the work, will start, again, we'll be starting after the approval in June, actually start in June, some work, and then we'll be working through that with the initial, a lot of the visual items that you will see will start to be addressed, and then the MEP stuff was kind of a lot of things, people may not even notice it, and that's the work that I talk about will be done starting August 1st, and really for 45 days, we have the pool from 8 to 5. And then Mrs. Gillespie has scheduled actual use of the pool during that time before and after the construction workday. And so she's able to actually let these groups use the facility even during the construction.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here again, Trey. So look forward to getting this thing going. Hopefully, if it passes, Mr. Martin will have a purchase order ready to go the next day.
Yes, sir.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Maloney, property taxes and tax compression.
Yes, this item is just an update only. We'll not be coming back at the next board meeting. Not much has changed since the last time that we spoke at the board retreat. We're looking at all of those variables and monitoring them weekly. The trending is not trending to what we were used to seeing last year. But at present time, the values are still at a point where we would be compressed all the way down to the lowest possible MCR. But I am going to put together a little chart starting next week to send out to you weekly that's just going to show over time from each week where those net taxable values are and what they're estimating the certified roll to be. The issue that I have with that is if it's falling below 95% on the estimate to that total, there's got to be an issue. I mean, we can't be at 89 or 88% on the certified roll to what the net taxable is. So I'm going to put that together for you so you can see it over time. But right now, the values in either of those numbers, quite honestly, would still compress all the way down to the lowest possible tax rate.
Okay. TASB resolution and property tax timeline.
Yes, kind of going along the same lines. This item was brought by Ms. Hassett, and do you want to speak to that?
Sure. This is the TASB resolutions that you can set forth to allow TASB's delegate assembly in convention to vote to agree or not for all of the resolutions that the other districts around the state has brought forward. We believe that this is something that's going to affect most of the districts in Texas. Most of them are on the same calendar year we are. A few of them aren't. But so they're all struggling with the same timeline issues. So this is really just a resolution, and when hopefully it is passed by the delegate assembly by TASB, it's something that TASB will help us push during the legislative session, is to help with the timeline, what Ms. Maloney has just shared with us. So I think it's a great resolution, well worded by Ms. Maloney, and I think we should adopt.
Thank you. We're going to see this next week.
And it is an action item, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we need to talk about TASB delegate. Right, when do we make that decision on who our TASB?
Resolutions have to be done by the 15th, I think, so we have to.
Right, I'm just thinking.
But the delegates themselves is.
August?
Sure, August.
Okay. All right, so everybody be thinking about that.
It's not till September is the convention, so it'll be
Okay.
later.
I think it's Dr. Bonner's turn, actually. June, the renewals for next month. Did you want to talk about that?
Yes. This is just what we talked about at the board retreat, that with the volume of the consent agenda items that come, especially at this time of the year, June being a very heavy month, I believe August and September as well, we, in an attempt to make it easier not only for you guys but for all of us to build some collective understanding on all these renewals, we divided the consent agenda items into 3 categories and are wanting to provide that guide, which you have, and which you can take those items when they're released to you 10 days in advance and have something, a reference material, if you will.
Great, thank you for doing that. I think it'll help us be more efficient and anticipate some of the things.
Yes, helps us too.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that, Dr. Rapp? All right, Mr. Colback.
Hi, good evening. This is a topic regarding EdFi, and I had a chance to speak to this a little bit during the retreat, but we're going to touch on it again. Basically, EdFi is a data standard. So as you can imagine, we've talked about this at length. When we have different disparate systems, you have different formats for systems. So this standard was really created by the EdFi Alliance to try to standardize how data is sent back and forth to various systems. It's also the standard that's used by Common Education Standards at the U.S. Department of Education level, and then also TEA is adopting that data standard as well for the TSDS system, which will go into effect or go live in 24-25. I think what I want to point out on this is what we're looking to do is essentially look at products and services that would allow us to implement elements of EdFi, and specifically what we're looking for, if you look at the items in your board book on bullet 3, this idea of bullet 2, an open data store, which is essentially a database that allows us to populate data from our authoritative systems like our student information system and our Case Skyward. And then that database then, as I shared during the retreat, kind of acts as like a middleware database. So some benefits for us to have that would be it would allow us to start having our data integrations kind of written and connected from it versus our student information system or our financial system like Munis. So what we see there is that would allow us to, I guess, make some of those systems a little bit more modular in sense, in that if we would in the future consider replacing our student information system or our finance system, all of our systems that provision accounts, that have workflows tying back to our digital resources, they're all tied essentially back to our student information system. So what we're wanting to do is get that work done ahead of time, position ourselves to be ready to take on those projects. As you can imagine, just to do a migration on any one of those systems, it would be a lot of work, a lot of change management. So what we're trying to do is position ourselves to have that work done ahead of time. We also anticipate that there's some potential cost savings where we can eliminate some of the services that we have in place currently. So what we're looking to do is we're actively working with procurement and contracts to do an RFP, request for proposal, for products and services, and plan to bring this topic back as we look at what kind of responses we get for that. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Makes sense. Sounds like we have a plan.
Okay. All right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right. We'll now convene back into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.074, 551.076, and 551.089. The time is 7:29 p.m.
Test, test.
You ready? You ready?
It's a great use of it.
All right, if there's no further, I'm sorry. We're back on record in open session, having returned from closed session at 9:32 p.m. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Time is 9:32 p.m.